If our language had a life story, what would it even look like? We tend to think of English as this fixed, ancient thing, but its real story is just this wild ride of invasions, class struggles, and some absolutely brilliant moments of invention. Let's get right into it. So let's start with a simple question. If I could hand you a text written in English from the year 1000, do you think you could read it? It's your own language, shouldn't be too hard, right? Well, let's find out. Take a look. This is the opening line of the epic poem Beowulf. And let's be honest, it looks and sounds completely alien. It feels like a totally different language. You might maybe be able to spot a word or two that feels kind of familiar, but that's about it. And here is the punchline. That is English. Or at least it's our language's great-grandparent. So how in the world did we get from that to the English we're speaking right now? Well, our journey has four main stops. We're going to start with Old English, that tough Germanic original. Then we'll hit Middle English, which is when everything got turned on its head. After that, Early Modern English, the age of Shakespeare. And finally, Modern English, the language that went global. All right, first up, let's dive into that alien ancestor, Old English. This is the bedrock, the Germanic foundation where the core DNA of the words we use every single day was first laid down. So, around 450 AD, these Germanic tribes, the Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes, they sail over to Britain. They bring their language with them, and it's grammatically super complex with all these different word endings. But what's so amazing is that this tough language gave us our most basic gut-level words, words for family, for the body, for the world around us. Think of hus, which became house, or kjoning, which became king, this simple stuff. For about 600 years, English was cruising along on this Germanic path. And then one single event happened that just completely slammed on the brakes and sent it spinning in a totally new direction. And that event was the Norman conquest of 1066. William the Conqueror invades England, and his French-speaking nobles become the new bosses. All of a sudden, English is the language of the peasants, and Norman French, that's the language of power, of the courts, of everything sophisticated. And this is the perfect example of the new class divide. The Anglo-Saxon farmers out in the fields, the ones actually raising the animals, they used the old words, sheep, cow, pig. But the French-speaking lords sitting down to dinner, they used their words, mutton, beef, pork. We still have both sets of words today, like a perfect little fossil of that social split. English to survive had to change. It became this incredible linguistic sponge, just soaking up thousands of new words from French and Latin for things like government, law, and art. And this flood of new vocabulary had a totally wild side effect. It forced English grammar to get way simpler. The language just dropped all those complicated Old English endings and became so much more flexible, all to make room for its new vocabulary. Now let's jump to our next chapter. After surviving that French mashup, English enters the Renaissance, and this is a period of just explosive creativity that's going to give us the language we really recognize today. A huge piece of technology arrives on the scene, the printing press. For the very first time, books could be mass-produced, and that meant people had to start making choices, agreeing on how to spell words. This was the real beginning of a standardized English, one that folks could recognize from London all the way to York. And right in the middle of all this comes one man who took this evolving language and treated it like his personal playground, William Shakespeare. He didn't just write in English, he was actively inventing it, coining over 2,000 words and phrases that we still use all the time. Have you ever used the word eyeball, or swagger, or called something fashionable? Yep. You can thank Shakespeare for those. And these weren't just obscure, fancy words. He created everyday vocabulary that filled in the gaps, and it just stuck. So now we've got this flexible, rich, standardized language. But how did it go from being the language of one little island nation to basically the default language for the entire planet? It really happened in four key steps. First, the British Empire physically took the language all over the globe. Second, the first big dictionaries and grammar books were written, which kind of locked in the rules. Third, the Industrial Revolution and all the scientific advances that followed were largely documented in English. And finally, all that momentum just made it the essential lingua franca, the common language of modern business, travel, and culture. But of course, English didn't stay the same as it spread. No way. It kept doing what it does best, adapting. It created this whole family of distinct, vibrant varieties all around the world, from American and Australian to Indian English, and each one has its own unique vocabulary and flavor. So, if we pull back and look at this entire life story, what's the one thing that defines English? What's the real secret to its incredible success? It's this: English is a glorious mix. It's a mutt, and that's a good thing. At its heart, you've got that tough Germanic core for everyday life. Then, layered on top is this massive vocabulary from French and Latin for all the formal, legal, and abstract ideas. And for science and school, it borrowed a ton from Greek. It's a hybrid, through and through. When you really put it all together, you realize English isn't pure at all. And that's its superpower. Its whole history of being conquered, and then its role in trade and empire, it all forced it to become the world's most adaptable, most absorbent language. It is a survivor that thrives by borrowing. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating final thought. The language you're hearing right now is the product of thousands of years of invasions, adaptations, and constant borrowing. And its evolution isn't over.